Emily was the perfect babysitter, trusted by parents, adored by children, and welcomed into every home. But when Sarah and Daniel hired her, they had no idea that behind Emily's gentle smile was a dark secret waiting to surface, one that would turn their peaceful life into a chilling nightmare. Emily came across as the kind of young woman every family dreamed of hiring. She was polite, respectful, and always showed up on time. Her smile was warm enough to put anxious parents at ease, and she carried herself with a calmness that made her seem reliable. Sarah and Daniel, a hard-working couple with a little girl named Lily, thought they had found the perfect babysitter the day they met her. For them, Emily was a gift, someone they could trust when their busy schedules kept them away. But sometimes, the most perfect masks hide the darkest truths. From the very beginning, Emily blended into their lives seamlessly. She played with Lily in the living room, baked cookies in the kitchen, and often stayed late into the night while Sarah and Daniel attended events or worked late hours. Neighbors would often see Emily walking with Lily along the suburban street, holding her hand as though she were her own sister. No one suspected a thing. She was just the friendly young woman who always had time for children. And that's what makes this story so unsettling. How well do we ever really know the people we invite into our homes? Parents watching now, have you ever trusted a babysitter without checking too closely into their background? Would you leave your children with someone who simply felt right in the moment? Comment below, because Sarah and Daniel's choice to trust Emily would soon come back to haunt them. First, Emily's presence seemed to improve everything. Lily grew attached quickly, often asking for Emily even when her parents were home. Sarah appreciated the break, telling friends how grateful she was to finally find someone dependable. Daniel, too, admired Emily's maturity, remarking on how responsible she seemed for her age. But beneath this calm, dependable surface, there were cracks forming that no one noticed. Emily lived only a few blocks away, in a small rented room at the back of an old house. Her landlord described her as quiet, almost too quiet. She didn't have friends over, rarely used her phone in public, and seemed to disappear into her thoughts whenever someone tried to strike up a conversation. Those who interacted with her casually assumed she was shy, maybe even lonely. But the truth was far more disturbing. What Sarah and Daniel didn't realize was that Emily had a past she worked very hard to bury before moving to their neighborhood. She had lived in another town where strange incidents had followed her children who went missing for short periods. Parents who later claimed they had unsettling feelings after hiring her. An unexplained cause to local police that never seemed to go anywhere. Nothing was ever proven, and without solid evidence. Emily always slipped away before suspicion could turn into action. Now, in this quiet suburban community, she was starting over, and Sarah and Daniel's family became her focus. Looking back, there were small warning signs. Emily often asked too many questions about their schedules, wanting to know when they would be gone, how long they'd be away, and if neighbors ever checked in on the house. She would linger in rooms when she thought no one was watching, studying family photographs on the walls with an expression that was difficult to read. Sometimes Sarah noticed Emily staring at Lily for a moment too long, but she brushed it off as affection. But you shouldn't ignore those instincts. Have you ever felt uneasy around someone without knowing exactly why? Sometimes that feeling is your only warning, and Sarah's quiet doubts would later haunt her. As the weeks went on, Emily's hold on the family grew stronger. Lily adored her so much that tantrums broke out whenever her parents suggested someone else might babysit. Emily encouraged this bond, making herself indispensable. She became a regular part of their lives, moving from an occasional helper to someone who was always around. On the surface, nothing seemed unusual. Yet behind the mask of the perfect babysitter, Emily's dark secret was waiting to come out. The night that changed everything was getting closer, and the trust Sarah and Daniel placed in her would soon unravel in the most shocking way. Viewers, make sure you stay with this story. What happened in that house would shock the entire neighborhood, and Emily's dark secret would finally be exposed. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see how this chilling story unfolds, because this is only the beginning. The trouble began quietly, in ways too subtle for Sarah and Daniel to notice at first. Emily's role in their lives seemed natural, almost too natural. She began picking Lily up from preschool when Sarah worked late, sometimes offering to run errands for the family, always going above and beyond what was expected. At first, Sarah felt grateful, telling friends she couldn't believe their luck in finding someone so helpful. But perfect often hides dangerous flaws. It started with small boundaries being crossed. Emily stayed later and later, sometimes long after Sarah and Daniel had returned home. She lingered, offering to tidy the kitchen or fold laundry. One night, Daniel found her in the living room staring at their family photos long after Lily had gone to bed. When he asked what she was doing, she smiled faintly and said she was just admiring how happy they looked. The explanation sounded harmless, but the way she said it left him uneasy. He didn't tell Sarah, brushing it aside as overthinking. Then came the nights when Emily seemed too eager for Sarah and Daniel to leave. She encouraged them to go out, suggesting they deserved time away from home. Even offering gift cards she claimed to have lying around to local restaurants. It seemed thoughtful, but why would a babysitter push her employers to leave more often? Parents watching, would you find it flattering, or would it make you wonder why? Comment below, because Sarah and Daniel didn't question it soon enough. Meanwhile, Lily's attachment grew stronger. She began to resist being left with anyone else, even her grandparents. When asked why, she simply said she liked Emily best. At first, her parents found it sweet, but there was something unsettling about the intensity of Lily's preference. It wasn't just admiration. It was dependency, almost obsession, and Emily seemed to encourage it. She gave Lily special gifts, whispered secrets to her at bedtime, and created an environment where the little girl felt like no one else could understand her, the way Emily did. Neighbors also noticed Emily's increasing presence. She was always around the house, even when she wasn't scheduled. Some saw her in the yard, playing with Lily when Sarah was home. Others saw her parked outside in her car late at night. No one said anything at the time. After all, she was the babysitter. What harm could she possibly cause? But looking back, it's often the little details that add up to the biggest warning signs. Inside her own rented room, Emily's obsession with the family deepened. She had started a small collection items she had quietly taken from Sarah and Daniel's home. A scarf from the laundry room, a framed photo she replaced with a copy, even one of Lily's toys. To Emily, these objects weren't just things. They were pieces of a life she desperately wanted to claim. She arranged them carefully in her room, like trophies, as if she were already part of the family. Sarah's instincts occasionally flared. She once noticed that Emily seemed to know too much about their private lives, bringing up details she hadn't shared. Another time, she found Lily repeating phrases that sounded more like Emily's words than her own. Still, Sarah silenced her worries, telling herself she was being paranoid. How many parents ignore those small gut feelings until it's too late? The turning point came one evening when Sarah returned home earlier than planned. Expecting to find Lily asleep, she walked into the living room and froze. Emily was sitting on the couch with Lily curled against her, reading a story, but the way Emily was holding her looked more like possession than care. She didn't notice Sarah at first, whispering to Lily in a tone that was unsettling, almost claiming. When Emily looked up and realized she wasn't alone, her expression flickered just for a second before she put on her practiced smile. That night, Sarah couldn't shake the image. She mentioned it to Daniel, but he dismissed it as stress. Still, something in Sarah's heart told her the situation wasn't right. Emily was no longer just a babysitter. She was inserting herself deeper into their lives, and her secret obsession was edging closer to being revealed. This was only the beginning of the nightmare. What Sarah and Daniel didn't realize was that Emily's boundaries weren't just bending, they were breaking. And soon, the consequences of ignoring their instincts would become unavoidable. Viewers, keep watching. What happens next will leave you questioning just how safe the people in your home really are. The deeper Emily became involved with Sarah and Daniel's household, the harder it became to separate her role as a babysitter from her growing obsession. On the surface, she was the dream caretaker, punctual, dependable, and endlessly devoted to Lily. But beneath that facade, Emily's grip on the family was tightening in ways they didn't yet understand. She began showing up with groceries, claiming she wanted to help out because Sarah looked tired. She offered to handle bills and schedules, saying she had extra time. Slowly, she was embedding herself into their daily routines. At first, Sarah welcomed the help, but she also started to feel like her own place in her home was shrinking. Little by little, Emily was stepping into the role of wife and mother without anyone saying it aloud. For the audience, imagine someone gradually erasing your identity while smiling in your face. How long would it take before you noticed? Daniel remained blind to the shift. Emily treated him with the utmost respect, never stepping out of line, at least not openly. But there were subtle signals. The way she rearranged furniture without asking. The way she began cooking meals and leaving them in the fridge labeled as if she were part of the household. These weren't acts of kindness. They were acts of claiming territory. Meanwhile, Lily's dependency reached new heights. She refused bedtime stories from Sarah and begged for Emily instead. When Daniel tried to take Lily on a weekend outing, she cried for Emily to come along. Sarah's heart broke as she realized her daughter was slipping further away, almost as if Emily was replacing her in Lily's mind. The tension inside the house thickened, but Sarah still hesitated to confront Emily directly. Would you, as a parent, step in immediately, or would you second-guess yourself the way Sarah did? Comment your thoughts, because this moment was the turning point. Emily's behavior became bolder. She started locking Lily's bedroom door when she read her bedtime stories, claiming it helped the child sleep without disturbance. Sarah only discovered this when she tried to peek in one night and found the door wouldn't open. Her pulse quickened, but Emily brushed it off with another smooth explanation. That excuse worked once, but Sarah's suspicion had finally taken root. Things escalated one rainy evening when Sarah came home earlier than expected. She entered quietly, the house dim and strangely silent. From the hallway, she heard Emily's voice, low and sharp, coming from Lily's room. When Sarah pushed the door open, she froze. Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding Lily's hand tightly, whispering words that sounded less like comfort and more like control. The intensity in Emily's eyes was startling. When she noticed Sarah, her expression softened instantly, the mask snapping back into place. But Sarah had seen too much. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Doubts she had ignored now weighed heavily on her mind. She thought back to Emily's constant presence, her boundary-crossing habits, the way she seemed to claim ownership over Lily. Was this really about care, or was it something darker? Daniel, as always, dismissed her concerns, but Sarah's instincts were louder now than ever before. The following week, Sarah decided to test her suspicions. She told Emily she wouldn't need her for a few days. Emily's reaction was unsettling. Her smile faltered, and her insistence to stay involved was almost desperate. She dropped off gifts, called repeatedly, and even lingered outside their home. Sarah felt watched in her own neighborhood. Emily wasn't letting go, and the tension turned suffocating. Neighbors began to notice too. One recalled seeing Emily walking up the driveway late at night, even when the family wasn't home. Another claimed she often parked on the street for hours, staring at the house. Sarah realized Emily wasn't just attached, was obsessed by now. The line between caretaker and intruder had blurred completely. Emily wasn't satisfied with being the babysitter anymore. She wanted something more, something that belonged to Sarah and Daniel, and she was willing to cross every boundary to get it. The family was heading toward a breaking point, and Sarah's instincts told her something terrible was about to happen. The warning signs were everywhere, but they hadn't yet seen the true depths of Emily's dark secret. That revelation was coming, and when it surfaced, it would change everything forever. The final unraveling began on a quiet Saturday night. Sarah and Daniel had been invited to a friend's dinner party, and as usual, Emily volunteered to stay with Lily. But Sarah hesitated. Every instinct in her body screamed not to leave her daughter alone with Emily again. Daniel brushed off her concerns, insisting she was overreacting, and convinced her to go. Reluctantly, she agreed, though unease gnawed at her the entire evening at the party. Sarah found herself distracted, unable to shake the image of Emily's sharp whispers in Lily's room. She kept checking her phone, waiting for an update. But there were no texts, no calls. When she finally decided to phone home, no one answered. A cold panic spread through her. She and Daniel left the party abruptly and sped home through the dark streets. When they arrived, the house was eerily silent. The lights inside were off, except for a dim glow from Lily's bedroom. Sarah rushed up the stairs, her heart hammering. What she found made her blood run cold. Emily was sitting cross-legged on the floor, clutching Lily's favorite doll, her face streaked with tears. Lily was asleep in bed, unharmed, but the scene was disturbing. Emily looked up slowly, her eyes wild and unrecognizable. She murmured that they had no right to be there, that Lily belonged with her now. Daniel stepped forward, demanding answers, but Emily's demeanor shifted from sorrow to rage in an instant. She stood, blocking the bed, her voice trembling as she declared that she had given everything to this family, and now they were trying to take it away from her. The words didn't make sense, but the intensity behind them was terrifying. For Sarah, it was the confirmation she had dreaded. Emily had crossed into dangerous obsession. Sarah tried to move toward Lily, but Emily lunged first, pulling the child into her arms. Lily awoke, confused and frightened, crying for her mother. The standoff in that room felt endless, the air thick with dread. Emily's hands shook as she clung to the child, muttering that she would never let go. In that moment, Sarah realized the danger wasn't just emotional anymore, It was physical. Neighbors later recalled hearing raised voices, then a crash as something heavy hit the floor. Daniel wrestled to pull Emily away, but her desperation gave her a frightening strength. She screamed, clinging to Lily with all her might, until Sarah managed to pry her daughter free. In the chaos, Emily struck out wildly, knocking over a lamp. The bulb shattered, and darkness swallowed the room, broken only by the child's terrified sobs. The struggle spilled into the hallway, where Emily's grip finally loosened. Sarah pushed Lily behind her and screamed for Daniel to call the police. Emily, disoriented and frantic, bolted down the stairs. By the time authorities arrived, they found her collapsed outside the house, hysterical and clutching Sarah's scarf. She had taken weeks earlier. The police quickly pieced together the disturbing truth. In Emily's rented room, they discovered the hidden collection family photos she had stolen. Lily's toys, items of Sarah's clothing, and even a diary filled with disturbing entries about her desire to replace Sarah as Lily's mother. It was no longer just obsession. It was delusion, and it had escalated dangerously. For Sarah and Daniel, the relief of Lily's safety was overshadowed by horror. They had trusted Emily with their home, their daughter, and their lives, only to learn she had been building a fantasy in which she belonged to them. The betrayal cut deep, but the lingering fear was worse. How close had they come to losing everything? Emily was taken into custody that night. Experts later described her behavior as a combination of obsession and psychological instability, a perfect storm that could have ended in tragedy if Sarah's instincts hadn't pushed her to act. For those watching, the lesson is chilling. The people you let into your home, the ones you trust with your children, may not always be what they seem. Emily's dark secret had been hiding in plain sight, and by the time it was revealed, it had nearly destroyed an entire family. The nightmare was over for Sarah, Daniel, and Lily, but the memory of those nights, the sense of danger lurking behind a trusted smile, would never fully leave them. And for viewers, it's a haunting reminder. Trust is fragile, and sometimes the darkest secrets are held by those standing right in front of you.